want to welcome you to our Reality Therapy Corner. And our guest speaker today is Steve Hammond. I want to introduce him. He's served for nearly 50 years as a K through 12 teacher and administrator in Catholic schools, interfaith schools, and independent schools. And during this time, he's worked with school boards to start 6 schools. I think this is amazing. He's developed a new model of school called Schools of Intentional Total Formation. He's also started and administered for 17 years the first and only Catholic Glasser Quality School in the nation, St. Patrick Catholic School in Norfolk, Virginia. So he's an amazing speaker, talented and educated, and I can't wait to hear what you have for us today. So Steve, it's yours. Welcome.
Well, it's a great pleasure, and it's wonderful to see everybody. I can't see you, Ron, but I hope to see you. Are you there?
Tom is here. Welcome, Tom.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you, Tom, and Wendell, and Maureen, and Mona. Great to see you, Mona.
Hey.
Anybody else there that I'm not seeing on my screen?
I think you got them all right now.
Well, as Henry V said in Shakespeare, we are a happy band, a band of brothers and sisters. I thank you very much, Vicki, for the introduction. It's as we all know, you hang around enough. You just hang around enough, and you get to do stuff. And then finally, you're a senior member at the party, and people are looking to you to give sage advice, and you feel absolutely so humbled and half the time inadequate. Especially when the room is filled with these, like very astute, bright, people. So that is how I'm coming to you today, with great humility, but hopefully a snatch or two, a scrap that I can offer that might help in terms of understanding better or in a different way how to use reality therapy with children and youth. I've done that now for many years, and some of the things that I'll offer today are just done almost organically because they worked. And I have to say too that I enjoy every single minute of it. I don't think there's anything I enjoy more in education than working with kids and helping them solve their issues and become better people. So with that, I've prepared a little PowerPoint that can guide our discussion. Please interrupt at any time with questions, and they're always welcome. And I'll try to structure it to where we'll have a little chat time at the end of this presentation. Bam! Can you see that, everybody?
Yes.
Okay, then reality therapy. Of course, all of the teachers are trained intensely in reality therapy. They know it pretty well. We decided to call it success planning because we were getting a number of questions from parents, like, what is this therapy thing that you're doing with my children? And so rather than just borrow that trouble, we just decided that success planning would be a better way to explain it. So that's what we've done. And so over the years, what I found, it just has so many permutations and ways to approach it. Okay. These are the 4 questions, and I'm not. Everybody knows this, so I'm not going to really dwell on that. But this is something that you will like the next slide, because it's any kind of planning, especially if you're talking with people and all of the variables they have in their mental and spiritual and emotional and social selves, it's a messy business. It doesn't have really tucked in corners. But people forget that, especially they do in schools, because how many times have you heard, well, I don't know why he didn't do that. I told him yesterday to ... Are you with me on that? Well, I don't know why he's not doing it. I told him yesterday. Well, of course he's not going to do. He's not going to do that because he hasn't changed his quality world picture yet. So this is really kind of what happened. I call this, the time behavioral chart. And if on the vertical axis, if we have the level of behavior from undesirable behavior down here, can you see my pointer when I'm...
Yes.
Okay. Undesirable behavior, and then up here where the star is, asterisk, that's a very desirable behavior, but we hope will happen. And then on the horizontal axis is just time. It can be any amount of time, great lengths of time or not. We'll talk about a little later. But the behavior time chart, and so what all too often what we think will happen once we've made an intervention, that all of a sudden this will happen. We have a line straight up almost to the asterisk, like behaviors change, let's go home. But what really is realistic is that we have the behavior, we have a point of intervention, and see this asterisk here out in the future, right here? Well, that's the student's goal, behavioral goal. We help them set that goal. And then what happens over time, if we're monitoring and adjusting it properly, then this is what happens. It goes up and down, they get better, and then they slip, and oh Lord, we monitor and adjust it again, and it just keeps on going like that over time until it gets to a point to where they've achieved their goal, which in almost every cases will happen if you stay with it and you keep you don't break the connection, you keep working with the child.
Steve, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So did the children see this graph line by any chance?
We show it to them all the time.
Okay, and the reason I was asking is with the visual to say, look, I'm doing more of the behavior I want and less of the undesirable behavior. This is awesome because a lot of kids are visual. So this is really, it's eye-catching. I love it.
Well, I think in counseling, it would be a good tool too. It certainly has been in the educational realm. And so, and what it tells, and once you break this open, and talk to the child, you say, you're going to mess up sometimes. You're not going to do everything perfectly, and that's all right. What you do is you keep trying. You have to be persistent. If you want to use the word of the day, you have grit. We have a growth mindset involved in this. You're going to get what you want. You're going to achieve your goal, but you're going to make mistakes too, because you're a human being. Human beings move. So when you get to this point, this is an inflection point. When you see this right here, where golly, the behavior's pretty good right here, and then all of a sudden it fell again, and at this point, a lot of times these inflection points here, where they're doing well and then they mess up, those are critical points because they think they're doing well, and then they make a slip. They're still doing well. They can't see the forest for the trees because they can't see their improvement all the time. But they'll want to give up right after these points right here, the low point. They want to give up, and you just have to then, to your point, Vicki, in talking about this chart, say, hey, look, let's go back and see what all that you've done. You have done so many things that are getting you closer to your goal. You're doing great. You just messed up this time. Let's pick it up, go back again. So, yeah, we pull that out for kids all the time. Also, we pull it out for parents. But parents need to see this. You know, when parents come into the principal's office or any office, you know, having to do with the school and their children, a lot of them are so very scared, and they're scared that somebody will perceive them as not being a good, and it scares them to death. And so, you know, using this to say, hey, look, you know, Jimmy is doing a great job. This is trending so well, and that's it's just so wonderful when they hear that. Very, very reassured by it. Any other questions on that, Sean? Then with that, you know, should be you know, everybody's seen the SAMIC planning format, but it's worth talking about, because in the success planning, you got to teach them what a plan is, and you have to spend some time with them and get their you know, get their input on it and their ownership of it. So I think this SAMIC is a good plan format. The SMART plan it's not a bad plan. What I like about SAMIC 3 more than anything is that this committed to, when you have to test for commitment, even in school. You know, you really want this? I mean, how bad do you want it? And get their commitment. Does that make sense? Does everybody remember the SAMIC model?
That's the first time I've seen it.
Who's talking? Tom? Now, in the plan, you know, what I've learned over the years is that once you have facilitated a plan with the child and they are committed to it and they feel good about it, doable, measurable, simple, then it's all well and good. But one thing, as sure as the night turns into the day, that will happen, it will fail. It will fail every time that it's not consistently monitored and adjusted. And if that's not taking place, I haven't seen a child yet, or even a young person, that you know, has the presence and the maturity and the will to not let that plan fall apart. Just doesn't happen by magic. And that's why, and even with this right here, you're still going to have that time behavior chart up and down.
Some of the things.
Okay, I didn't hear that. You might have to translate this. I can't hear anybody now.
I'm sorry, I was muted. So I was wondering how you incorporated that in the school classroom, that you were able to, your teachers were able to be consistent. Maybe you can share what they did to do that.
Well, that's where I'm getting to right now. I'm going to show, and this is one of the things. Quick answer is that we talk about this all the time, and this is train, because the teachers are responsible for, you know, facilitating their own plans in the classroom, and there's a system to where if that happens to fail, it goes to different people, counselors, administrators. Eventually, it'll come to me if it gets to be of a certain level. And everybody knows this model and knows that they have to monitor and adjust it, or don't expect it to happen. Another thing that might be interesting to you is that every semester we have a zone report. I don't have this on the PowerPoint, but it's a zone report, and every teacher puts their children, their students, if they're in any kind of difficulty, they put them in 3 zones. one of three zones. The red zone, kids in academic difficulty. The blue zone are kids in emotional difficulty. And if they're in the red and blue zone, then we call them Purple Hearts, because red and blue is purple. And that and those are the kids that we immediately prioritize and really focus on. So that's just to say that in every one of those children then are having success plans. That's part of it. If they're in the zone, they probably would already have had success plan. But if they don't, then the teacher will immediately help them and facilitate the plan. Questions on that? Okay.
Was it a lot of time? Does it take a lot of time to do something like that? Or once the teachers got used to it, did it become just natural, normal for them?
It just depends upon the degree of difficulty. One of the things that we go over a lot is that we're not here solely to be expedient. We like to do things expediently if it can be done that way with quality, but a lot of times things that are very, very important and meaningful it takes hard work, and it's not going to be as expedient as you would like it to. So, but the teachers know that, and yes, it takes some time, but the more you do it, as everybody probably already knows, the more you do it, the better you get at it, and so you can do this pretty quickly. The monitoring, it can be walking up and down can happen when it's walking up and down the aisles or around students or whatever. It can be done pretty quickly. But since in this school, all staff and all teachers are giving some kind of direct support to children, then really a teacher had almost the whole school in some ways to lean on, and that happened a lot. Does that make sense, Vicki?
Yeah, it's just really intriguing to me because I teach, and I'm not teaching kids, but I'm teaching adults that behave like children because of the emotional immaturity, the substance use, the ACEs that they've experienced. And so a lot of this goes in line with what I'm doing. I just haven't ever seen it like this before, and it's very intriguing.
Let me tell you a little story of one that was very difficult. And this is the story of Liam and Roger. And Roger broke his foot. He was an athlete, broke his foot. He broke it badly. And in an event in the gymnasium, Liam, who ostensibly was his friend, dropped probably a 2-pound biology book on Roger's ankle. And it caused him to have surgery again. And Roger, whether he did it on purpose or not, that's debatable. But Roger was just furious at Liam, and he wouldn't talk to him, and it was really upsetting. And so I asked them to come to my office, and we started a process that literally lasted the entire year. And I asked him if I'm going to show you the process that that I use right now, but that process eventually was successful in them becoming friends. But Roger did not want. He said, "I don't want anything to do with him. I don't want him around me. I don't want to see him. I don't want to talk to him. Period." He was that adamant. On the other hand, Liam, he said, I'd really like to be friends again. And this is how that rolled out over time. And Vicky, this is the thing that, sometimes it takes, it can take a day or less. And other times it, depending upon the counselors or the teachers' level of commitment and the students, can take the entire year. So this is getting to kind of a little bit of the meat of it, and scaffolding for peer conflict situations. And so the first thing, of course, you bring the students together. And when I brought these two students together, and like I said, they were polar opposites in what they wanted. And so I said, well, let's talk about friendship. Liam wants to be friends, and you don't, and I can understand both of your points of view. But let's talk about friendship. And so we did that, and we defined it as being the one, and you could have not a relationship. I don't know how you do that in a class where you see each other every day, but you could insist on that. Or you could have a civil relationship. I'm going to give you categories now. You can have a friendly relationship where you treat each other friendly. You can be friends where you really kind of have each other's back, and there's a significant level of trust you could comfortably call a friendship. You could be close friends, and that would just heighten the trust level and commitment to the relationship. And then you could be besties, they call this, he or she's my bestie, best friends, and so that with those things, and I was talking to Roger, you don't want any kind of relationship, and I know that you're angry. Key question, would you be open to a friendship? Not that you want that right now, but are you just open to the possibility of becoming a friend again with him? And Roger said, I would be open to that, but not now. So with that's a big step forward. It offers possibilities. I said, well, in that case, then why don't we meet on a regular basis, maybe every 10 days or something, week to 10 days, and we'll come together and see how you're feeling, what you're doing, sort of thing right now. And he said that would be fine. So we started this schedule of meeting together, and the next one we had facilitated a plan to what would it take, to what would it envision just to increase the readiness of being a friend, not being a friend, but just increase the readiness. So that was a little plan that kept on going. They were, they were committed to basically just being open to the possibility of friendship, and then of course we monitored and adjusted that, throughout that year. Here's the friendship categories. And so what happened, sometime during the second semester, Roger got to the point to where he didn't say he was a friend, but he was behaving as if he were a friend, not only inside the sessions, but out on the playground and sort of thing. And then sometimes like grace or fate or destiny just helps you out a bit. And so at the end of the year, each class has a play that they do, a class play. And they totally they just happened to be cast as brothers, and so friendly brothers, and that helped, too. By the end of the year, they said that they were, they both of them were friendly. They said that they were friends, and they moved on to their graduations, their eighth graders, as friends. I'll stop there for any questions on that, or anything that you're drawn to in that method. Okay, then let's.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I was going to say, I think for me, when you broke it down into friendship categories, wow, the one had the choice. I mean, he had a lot of choices. It wasn't just a friend or no friend. Look at all the different choices that you came up with. And I think that's excellent.
And to that point, we spent some time. You can obviously, over the course of a year, there was a lot of conversation. So we spent time on this. Now, what is a civil? Well, let's define it. What does that look like? Is
Right.
what level of feeling is involved in a civil relationship? Is there any? And so these things we kind of struggled and talked about and created pictures around. And
I think it's great because look at the life skill he just learned. He can take that with him for the rest of his life. How to break down relationships and do it in a very, I don't know if you want to call it a monitored way, but a very genuine way. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
let's go on.
Comment?
Because we want to kind of save some time for question and answers. There's another thing that or a category that happens all the time in school, and although we wish it wouldn't happen, and that is that you have an isolate. You have somebody that is alone. They might be isolating themselves, or they might be ostracized. And it's just a painful thing to see kids in that condition, and they tend to be unhappy. And so those kids would definitely be in the blue zone if when the teachers assess them. And so we spent time on this. All the teachers would know this and do this too. So, but you have to be careful with this. And so you meet with the student, and you determine, what degree of pain is he or she in, what level of need and want do they have, and what's their desire to address it. Are they self isolating? What's the reason for that? Do they want to? Some kids will say, "I don't really want to get back together." They really do, but they'll say that just to protect themselves. So you really try to get down to what's really real here. What's the level of need, pain, the desire? What's going on? To do that, you have to know the kid's story, obviously, going painful divorce with their parents, and or a myriad of things, as you all already. That's important to find out what's real. And then I asked them, okay, I noticed you're kind of just sitting by yourself on the playground here, and when the teachers tell me this, and in fact, they asked us to get together after you establish the trust level. And then he said, do you want to have friends? After a while, they will invariably say, yeah. And then, well, who would you like to be friends with? That's important. That's huge. You have a quality world picture of it. I'd like to be friends with John and Mary. Okay. Do they seem to be friendly to you? They seem to be something. And so once you get that, you got, you have some arrows in the quiver. Right? So um, at that point, um, scaffolding very methodically, trying to, would you mind if I talk to John? Maybe, see how they felt, and maybe we could start a conversation. And sometimes they don't want to do that, but a lot of times they do. And then almost all the time, with the time you keep meeting with the child, then they'll say, yeah, I'm okay with meeting them. And talking then with those people, you have the permission of the child to isolate. And so you're not surprising him, putting him in a situation where he could perceive himself as vulnerable. And then and then in that conversation with the scaffold, the two children, you ask, well, what do you think about, let's call this fellow Fred. And Freddie seems to be kind of alone a lot. What about him? And and everybody's so honest in that situation. Well, yeah, he does this or that, or seems to be irritating people, or just seems to be lonely, or yeah, I know, um, he's having a family issue or whatever. And then you ask, well, would you be able to, would you be able to be friendly to him, maybe start a relationship? And um, and in almost every case, I've seen very few people, kids, that said no. And so he said, well, then after they agreed to that, would you? I'm meeting with Freddie every week. Would you mind being a part of that sometime? So that when that happens, there's a magic that happens then, because they start developing a relationship, because um, that's just what happens when we come together and talk about similar pictures and the like. And sometimes in that situation, if they're doing something that's very, very irritable, you know, that can, kids are just so disarmingly honest, but in a very high trusting situation like that, they can bring that up. That maybe need to be scaffolded as well, but they can bring that up to the child, and the child will be less likely to do that. So that's the core. You have to, and then I would invariably go to the teacher, and then have the teacher, and there's so many groups of varying kinds, make sure that Freddie is with John and Mary, and so they're in close proximity, and so the likelihood of that interaction increases, and so they really start to develop a friendship. If it gets to a larger group, I'll do the same thing. Bring other people in. If it comes up in vivo in the conversation, these are other players that are antagonistic or friendly, and to use your assets, if you will, in terms of human resources, children, and keep the teacher imminently. Does all that make sense, y'all? It's time intensive. I can't say it's not. People want a quick fix, but this isn't a quick fix. But it is a fix, and it will work. And it's just one of the most. I think that these kind of things are one of the most important things in our commitment for inclusivity and relationship. Because these are the kids that are hurting. This is
right.
the kids we want to reach out to. Okay, that's one. Here's a biggie. And how do we stop bullying? And somebody will always come, and sometimes it's a parent, and that my son, my daughter's being bullied, and so you have to take that on face value. Say, well, let me check into it. And I always tell the parent, because they want something. A lot of times they'll come in and, or I say a lot of times over the years, that they want the child expelled or, suspended, or have to tell them, well, you don't do that. But and then and Mr. and Mrs. Jones, so much of the time in my experience, I see that it's a lack of information. You don't have information, or you don't, or it's not available to you. But I can almost assure there's some things here that we're not seeing. You go back and you talk to the bullied child and get a lot of information. The bullied child, just if that juncture right there, it might not be bullying. Bullying, I define it as a chronic power superior, so power-based type of behavior that child. It can be an incident of being bullied. Most of the time that we're talking about is something over time that demeans children through an imbalance of power. Child doesn't have power, and but so we determine, like, okay, what does that child want, and then you go and we talk about the define bullying, and we define what's a friend too, and then we use that to ultimately bring the bully and the bullied together. This goes back now to it's just the same dynamic with Leon and Roger. About the biology book, same dynamic. Find out that level, and sometimes in that process you find out that other people are being bullied. When that's happened, and you have to scaffold it, so there's that he is really or she's a bully, and you scaffold it to the point with your children to where they're okay to come up and talk to the bully. That can be pretty tense sometimes, but once you get to the point to where that they can come with one voice and say, yeah, you're doing this and I feel bullied, then you've got a real chance, and you can work with that bullied kid to where he develops some other and new behaviors. And that's we didn't have a lot of bullying in school, but when there was perceived bullying, then this was what we did, and just worked very, very well.
So Steve, did you have this in like a policy and procedure for the teachers and everybody?
And kind of like a operational plan, and
Okay.
Vicki, I don't think we ever put it in a book. I would, in trainings, I would do something like this, that we're doing right now, to where they would see it and talk about it and own it. So I don't think we I'm sorry I didn't hear you say that, but I don't think we systematized it in writing. Everybody pretty much knew how to do it, but you make a great point. So,
well, your training though, with the training, they had a handout or they had something that shared it. So they did have it. I just find it interesting if everyone's following the same, that means every grade, every time the student goes to a new grade, a new teacher, they're getting the consistency. And that's what I find intriguing.
Yeah, I think you would find that pretty well. And people, after a while, and if the teacher didn't have time to do it, remember in the Glasser Quality School, there were so many people that did know how to do it that you could lean on them. And I just happen to like doing this very well, and working with kids. So I was always working with them in this way. So I'm going to end with this story because it's one of my favorite stories. sometimes it just works. It just works, and it's beyond you. But this is where a reality therapy session worked seamlessly well. And some of you probably have heard it. But two 8th grade girls came into my office, and they were bickering, and they were just, they were at each other, and just kind of, really, they were just I don't know, like terrible. Anyway, so I asked them to come in, and they were, I don't even know what they were arguing about, but I asked them to sit down on the couch, and they sat down on the couch, and they had at it, and I just pulled my chair away from the couch to the farthest place I could get away from. So, and I just sat there and just let them go at it, And finally, you know how when it gets to the point where you recognize the presence of somebody, and they recognized my presence, and they slowed down, and they stopped, and they looked over at me. That may have been, it seemed to me like it was 2 hours, but it was probably, maybe 3 minutes or something. But anyway, they looked over there, and they stopped talking, and I said, well, what do you want? That's all I said. And this is just, this just happens like probably once in a million. I said, what do you want? And they looked at each other kind of dumbfounded, and they said, what do you mean? What do we want? I said, what do you want in your relationship? Isn't that why we're here? And, they had this look of kind of shock on their face, and they looked at each other. And, they turned around and they said, we want to be friends. Now, less than a minute before that, I thought they were going to scratch each other's eyes out. I mean, this is how bad it was. And you could have blown me down with a feather when they said, you want to be friends. And so I responded, well, what can you do to be better friends? And then I just shut up. And they started talking. And they talked for a long time. And then maybe 10 minutes later, they came back, and they said, we want to lead our class in a service project. We think if we could do that, then that would put us in together, and we could be better friends. And we do something that's decent. We do something good. And then all I said was, would you let me know how it goes?
Awesome.
And they said, yeah. And that was it. They came back some time later, and they said, and told me, it's working fine. It's just working great. We feel good about each other. So every once in a while, grace gets in the way.
It worked.
Okay. I've prattled on long enough, but what do you have any questions or thoughts or things that you were drawn to or repelled from, or did this meet your expectation, or did it not, or however we want to get into a discussion?
My statement is that sometimes it takes a little longer than 10 minutes in a meeting, but it does work. I had a guy call me after a couple of years saying that it had worked.
Really?
Yeah.
That is it. And it was just reality therapy that worked. And when you say that it worked, can you break that open a little bit, Tom?
Well, it was domestic violence, and he had learned that he didn't have to be boss and in control of everything. He could let other people have some control of their lives as long as he was in control of his. And he called me a couple of years later and told me that things were working better. He'd gotten a job, he'd quit drinking, and was doing real well with his wife.
and it's fantastic. Aren't those times just riveting and so happy that sometimes it just works so well. And
That's what makes it all worthwhile.
yeah,
I'll tell you a cute story. Early on, when I first learned these ideas and learned reality therapy, I was at a conference and I was talking to Dr. Glasser about it. And I said, I don't see clients any more than maybe 1, 2 times, 3 tops. And he looked at me and he said, well, Maureen, you'll have to get a job at McDonald's. I wasn't complaining or anything. He just came out with that.
I think along with Maureen's comment, even though we have a turnover because people, when they learn the skill, they move on. There's so many people in my community that don't have it, that my schedule is always full because people are getting in a lot of trouble with the courts, with their families, kids getting in trouble with their parents. So even though we teach it and people move on, there's still a lot out there that need to know this.
Well, I was fortunate. I had 52 weeks to work with the person. That's what the court told him to have to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
One time. That's a good time. Thanks for sharing. Mona,
And Tom,
Yes, sir.
so good to see you, Mona. Like, do you have any comments or thoughts or?
Well, it was very informative. It was good. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you so much too.
And your patience and your calm. I mean, you could just sit in the midst of the difficulty as you did with those 2 ladies. And it is your presence that helps to bring down their frustration.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard that kind of that same comment a lot over the years. But I don't see it in myself so much.
That's why it's powerful.
No.
I see it.
Or how about us, Kelly? Are you there? Have we met Kelly?
No, I'm brand new to all of this.
Yeah.
well, welcome. Where are you from?
I live in Tallahassee, Florida,
Oh, wonderful. Well,
and I'm currently reading
that's a
Choice
good
Theory
one.
in the Classroom.
That is a good one.
Uh,
In choice theory in the classroom, when I would just make a quick comment. Certainly, reality therapy, can help a lot in one's personal life and teaching it to children. But overall, when you teach children these things and let them run the classroom as much as possible, you can't let them run over you or anything like that. But when you can teach them to teach others and have student-led conferences about, this is what we're doing in the classroom. And so you have your principal or parents come in and you have your students telling them what you've taught them, then I think that's where some real magic starts happening, because they will transfer and they will not only when they have to teach it, then as we know, then they have a better handle on owning it. So all that you're learning in that choice theory in the classroom, if you can pass that on to the kids and let them, teach it to each other, critique each other, teach it, that's then it's their classroom.
Kelly,
So-
have you gone through basic training?
No, not yet.
Are you interested?
I think so. Yeah, I think I definitely, and I teach at a community college, so I have young adults, like
Nice.
18 to 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
So this is a really good opportunity to, teach them to take ownership of their vessel, if you will.
Absolutely. And the 18 to 21-year-olds, they're searching for identity so much.
100%.
They want to know what's real, and am I really real or am I not real? And this type of reflective process and self-understanding, it creates empathy, and probably the most important part of that, empathy with themselves. You know? So welcome to the conversation.
Thank
Yes.
you. And yes, I will send you my email, Vicki.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
We did. We've got great trainers. So we've got ways to help you out, whether it's online or in person. Did Pam or anyone else have anything they wanted to add? Stories or conversation to? Go ahead, Wendell.
I got 7 things. First of all,
I'm shocked. I'm so shocked.
I'll make it 6. I'll make it down to 6. So Kelly, I put my email address in the chat room. I send out a newsletter. I'm down in St. Pete, Clearwater. I send out a little personal newsletter, no big deal. It's about 200 people. So, and pick out, valuable things like this and share. So, in Tallahassee, one of Glasser's first friends was Alex Basson, who's probably long deceased in the Department of Criminology at Florida State.
Oh, yeah.
But long time ago. But anyway, and Alex was hi Pam.
Hi.
And Alex was a proponent and a believer in Glasser, but Glasser added in this control theory and then choice theory. Alex was a professor of criminology, and he always taught in his classes, if somebody mugs you and is looking for your purse or your money, just give it to them. Minimize your losses. Give it to them. Alex was in Las Vegas for a convention, up in the hallway going into his room, and somebody accosted him, grabbed him like that. Give me your money. Give me your wallet. I don't. And all of a sudden, boom! Alex said he found himself, instead of saying, "Here, take it," he says, "I'll give you my money, but I won't give you my wallet." And he took the money out and threw it on the floor, and the person left him alone. And he became an absolute believer in choices. And it was a great story anyway, too. A couple of other quick things, too. Steve, that chart of yours with up and down, I mean, that's for all of us, isn't it? We're learning typing skills. We're learning to parent. We're learning to do effective training in a classroom. We're learning whatever, and it's up and down and that sort of thing. I teach tennis a lot, and it's critical, to me, to give partial credit. A person will be like this, and they'll get here and they'll hit the ball, and then they look to see if it's going in. And it goes a foot long. This shot, watch this. This shot is so perfect like this, and it was a foot long. And they go, like this. And I say, if I were grading you, I'd give you an A-. It was out. Oh, maybe a B+. I said, you did 90% of the things right. You're here to learn tennis, and you don't get them all at once. You look at giving partial credit and kind of reframing it too. That's so helpful to people too. I don't know who, probably 1,000 educators or 10,000 have said this. Instead of telling a kid 1,000 times, teach him once or teach her once, that sort of thing. So CT is a big thing of teaching people. People quite often in fast food places, they aren't doing a very good job because somebody hasn't taught them. And then they haven't monitored, as you said. Where does that come from? Trust but verify. That's the famous kind of phrase, And also you kindly said, I'm just going to go through this thing on RT, and you all know this already. Okay, I don't know for what reason. After 40 years, I had never heard RT and success planning put together. But I don't have the background in education and finance. So I'm glommed on to this one now. That alone was worth me sitting in on this. So there's always some little jewel. Like 100 of them from Mona, and I circle them, and I'm going to use them, and there's always, and then there's always an affirmation of what you know. And then if you can add something else in, that's good too.
So you're going to
What-
put that in your newsletter, Wendell?
Yeah, some of them, yeah. This is
That'd be good.
this is 30 years ago. Go back 30 years from now. I'm in
Got 3
Atlanta.
minutes, Wendell.
Taking my continuing education with Sally Jesse Raphael and all the other talk shows, and one of them had a bullying situation where the parents and the kids, okay, and I knew the answer. And I watched it for a while. I picked up the phone and I called Kay Mithley in in Grand Rapids. She was the first principal of the first Glasser Quality School. Luckily, I got her. I said, Kay, I'm watching this show on bullying. Kids bullying other kids, like that. And I said, I know the answer to this, but tell me, do you have bullying in your school? This is 30 years ago. She said, no, of course not. Because they had all this stuff that Steve was talking about and cooperative and trying to bring people together and everything. It was, the school was absent virtually of discipline problems and bullying. It's the quality school model, and especially the way Steve has learned to implement it and add his own stuff too. It's just phenomenally successful. Thank you, Steve.
I agree. Pam, do you have anything you'd
Oh,
like to offer?
I just want to introduce myself. This is my first meeting with everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you. I was introduced to Glasser at least 40 years ago when I was in graduate school and haven't really gotten reacquainted with it since, other than the fact that I am working with a graduate student from Case Western Reserve, and I think she's on the line now. I always like the here and now therapies. Always, I like them because they are direct, and for certain target populations, they respond to approaches that are more direct, less esoteric, if you know what I mean. And that's why I always liked reality therapy. Also, I know that Glasser's from Ohio.
Yeah,
And that's where I'm from. But anyway,
Well, you're in
I've
my region, Pam. You're in my region. Please send me your email and I'll
okay. I'm actually in Cleveland, Ohio. I work for the Centers, which is a large nonprofit agency in Cleveland, Ohio. But she is the person that's responsible for even letting me know that this Zoom would be taking place, and I certainly plan to join all of you again in the future. I've enjoyed it, and I'm going to try to get up to speed. A whole lot's happened in the past 40 years.
Well, welcome. We still need to get your email, and just because I know some of you are going to leave at 1, and if you want to stay on, you can. November 28th at 12 noon is our next one. Okay. November 28th at 12 noon, and we'll be sending out emails about who the presenter will be, and then we'll be in the works of designing 2024's presenters. So it's going to be phenomenal. Lucy Robbins did this for 15 months. She did excellent, and then she retired. Just want to give her credit. But we'll be continuing it. It'll be a lot of fun. And please don't forget about our international conference, July 3rd to the 6th in Chicago, Illinois next year. July 3rd to the 6th in Chicago, Illinois next year. We're going to be at the Palmer House, and I'm just so super excited about that one. So Steve Hammond, again, and hold on a minute, Wendell, as always, superb, wonderful, so informative. I was intrigued and couldn't believe we had an hour and we were done. I'm like, no, I'm not done. So thank you. Go ahead, Wendell.
Pam, My email is on the chat room. Okay.
Oh, chat, okay.
In Cleveland is Dr. Dan Hancock. He was a personal friend of the Glasser family. Glasser's brother, he's met with Glasser many times. He teaches at one of the colleges or universities there, Dr. Dan Hancock. You send me your email, and sometimes he sits in on these sessions, and sometimes with the two that Mona hosts, okay? And he
Yes.
knows everything Glasser, and he knows everything education too. It's just phenomenal when he comes on and he talks about all that, too. Welcome, Pam.
I'm gonna add my email address in the chat. So
right.
because I would
That'd be
like
great.
that information.